Welcome to the world of forgiveness. This beautiful song is called Make Me a Channel of Your Peace. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me bring you love. Where there is injury, your pardon, Lord. And where there's doubt, true faith in you. Oh, Master, grant that I may never see so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. Where there's despair in life, let me bring hope. Where there is darkness, only light. And where there's sadness, ever joy. Oh, Master, grant that I may never seek so much to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love with all my soul. Make me a channel of your peace. It's in pardoning that we are pardoned, in giving to all men that we receive, and in dying that we're born to eternal love.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you all for coming. It is at this moment that we will invoke the presence of forgiveness and peace in our hearts. So if you could just take a moment to take a deep breath in and close your eyes if you will, or if you wish, put your hand on your heart. For we are the new humanity, a humanity that lives from the heart, guided from the heart, a humanity that is flowing from the intelligence and the wisdom of the heart. In a wholehearted, whole and complete way, we forgive. We forgive all separation. We forgive the separated self. We forgive any harm or hurt. And we trust and know that by divine providence, the wisdom to know and grow and understand how to heal is unfolding with every step that we take, so that we may live in a world living in love. For we are that great one love. We declare it to be so. Aho. Blessed be. Thank you. And it is with enormous, great pleasure that I introduce you to the sacred keeper of worldwide forgiveness, the director, Jacinta Martin, my beloved friend and compatriot. Hey, we've gone this journey many years.
Many years.
Yes, and I am so grateful to you for holding the flame of forgiveness in your heart and not letting it die.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Let's
see if I can do this bit. Good evening. and welcome to the 22nd Forgiveness Day. Bob Plath envisaged Forgiveness Day 20 years ago as a chance to celebrate forgiveness and to honour heroes and champions of forgiveness. And a hero is someone who has forgiven something quite unforgivable and is exemplary in it. And a champion is someone who has brought forgiveness to the world and marched it through, like, say, Bishop Desmond Tutu. Our heroes have forgiven things that are quite honestly unforgivable for most of us. They've forgiven the murder of their children. They've forgiven their own torture. They've forgiven their own incarceration. They have forgiven the total loss of their families through terrorists, through loved ones, and they have managed to forgive. And of course our champions are people like Desmond Tutu, John Lewis, people who have changed the world by their amazing forgiving hearts. And as this is 22 years, I would like to now show you some of our heroes and champions over the years. Thank you. Yes. I don't know if, like me, I am just so humbled by these incredible people. I am so honored to have been given this mission to carry. It was 18 years ago I first saw or came in touch with Bob on Forgiveness Day. And since then, every year has been challenging in its own way, but also so heart-deepening. I've met incredible people, people who are examples and just my heroes. When Bob gave me this mission, the the idea was that he wanted me to carry it, and I saw the mission in a similar way as he did himself. I saw it as the possibility of bringing forgiveness to the planet, bringing it to worldwide. The name, of course, is Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance. And to that end, I think we're somewhere on our path to doing that. In the last year, one of the most amazing allies and friends we have made has been Dada Vaswani and the Moment of Calm movement. And Dada started his Moment of Calm, take 2 minutes to forgive someone on the 2nd of August. And this year he had over 18 million people forgive. Could you show that graphic? I feel that that is kind of worldwide and kind of an interesting ally system. Talk about an alliance. So when I look at that, and just Dada is one of our allies. Unfortunately for all of us on the planet, Dada, just a week shy of his birthday, which was August the 2nd, which is the Moment of Calm, Take 2 Minutes to Forgive Day, passed away just before his 100th birthday. And I met him here when he came to visit, and he's an incredible little man. He said he was not a guru, but he manages to firstly pull in 18 million people to his mission, and secondly he has his program in 10,000 schools and has 3 or 4 hospitals, has just opened another couple of teaching hospitals. He actually, one video I saw of him, he was just handing out prosthetic limbs to people, like hundreds of them. It was amazing. And he's opened a lot of hospitals in India to deal with eye issues. So it's sad that he's gone, but we're working hand in hand with Anita now at Moment of Calm, and they've developed an incredible program. They have their program in 10,000 schools, which I said, how do you do that? And they said, well, the government wouldn't do it for us, but we asked them, and they said that if we wanted to do it, we could do it ourselves. So they did it themselves. And I think that is a good thing to aim for. I really want us to do the same thing. I want every child to experience forgiveness and see forgiveness as a choice. Other things we've been up to this year. This is what they call in sports a build year. We are sort of building from sort of devastation and coming up from losing a lot of our members, not having very much money, but we have been fortunate in having lots of support from certain teachers. And this year we're very, very pleased that in the coming couple of weeks, firstly we will have a forgiveness class which addresses some of what's been going on for the last couple of weeks here in this country. It will be forgiveness between men and women, and that I believe is on the 16th of November here, which I invite you all to sign up for. I think it's outside. The other thing we're bringing in, and it's been a passion of Eileen Barker's, which is forgiveness circles. Forgiveness circles are ritual explorations of forgiveness, and taken from Olivier Clark, who's a Belgian, and he has developed this incredible program that he's been running all over Europe. And Sunrise Centre and Eileen Barker are happy to be promoting this on the first Sunday of every month here at the Sunrise Centre. So I strongly advise you all get along and check that out. Eileen is also been gracious enough to work with us to start a program in the new year, starting in January. It is an 8-week course in forgiveness, and it's learning to be a forgiveness trainer. So this is the first part of a course wherein we are hoping for certification, and certification leading to all the other places you can use forgiveness. So down the line we see that some of the places that a forgiveness certification will really help you out are places like restorative justice, work with people like Eileen Horace with truth and reconciliation, work in hospice care, because if you can forgive, you can let go so much easily. And one of the other places that we see that is definitely a place to work with forgiveness is with patients and with healing in the hospitals, because we know that forgiveness really affects how well you heal and how well you even accept a transplant organ. So these are some of the things we have coming up. And also, you're all in on an experimental event. We're doing our first forgiveness forum. And I've got the idea, I know that it's where my passion lies, is that this is, if we start a forgiveness forum, we will bring the experts in the fields of forgiveness to discuss some of what we need to understand about forgiveness, to get a good definition of what it is, what it isn't, just to help us all get on board with learning how to forgive and practicing forgiveness. So these are some of the programs we're looking at. I am also very, very blown away by our heroes and champions tonight. I'm blown away, every year I'm blown away, but I'm particularly blown away by our heroes and champions tonight. Incredible people, particularly Carmen, who I would say has a sense of humour and a way of dealing with life that I'd envy at any time. So I'm really looking forward to hearing from her. The other thing, Anna, who has been working 20 or more years in forgiveness, and hey, bet she's something to teach us all. The other thing I want to let you all know tonight is that we have been very fortunate in having the support of Sunrise Centre and Laurie Grace here to bring forgiveness and to allow us to have forgiveness meetings here. Laurie has supported forgiveness almost 20 years, since the beginning. So having supported with Bob Platt, I'm very, very happy that she's on board to support me and the forgiveness mission. And let me see if I have anything else that I forgot to say. Glasses. Oh, a very important thing. Nearly forgot the most important thing. Money. Money. We need money. We need money to be able to bring these projects to fruition. We need money, and we even need money to hire a grant writer to get us more money. One of the things we need is not only with money, we could do with consistent support and people coming to our events and taking our classes, but also just regular volunteering, helping out. You know, the more people share the message of forgiveness among each other, the better the whole world will be. Because, you know, as Tudor said, without forgiveness there is no future. And our future, particularly the future of the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance, does depend on all of you and everyone you know and anyone you can tap, giving us some money to be able to bring this mission to the world. We have so many friends, and you know, this week, just with Forgiveness Week being on, I got a call from Sydney, Australia, for a woman looking where could she go to learn about forgiveness. I got a call from Long Beach, and then another one from Long Island. And I've got maybe 6 or 7 calls directly to my phone number of people all over the world who want to learn about forgiveness, who really, really are concerned and would like to know more about forgiveness. And we, because of Bob, and because of being in this community, are tapping in on something that the whole world really needs. The world needs forgiveness. You know, I was blown away with how much it needs it after this week. But I was also blown away that all the different places that forgiveness matters. You know, it matters everywhere. There's not a social situation, psychological situation, a religion that doesn't have forgiveness as its tenet. There is none. There is absolutely nowhere you can think of that forgiveness isn't needed. And we are so badly trained in it. Our idea is to go to aggression. When someone hurts us, we want to hurt them back, rather than taking that moment, as Fred says, to put forgiveness on our menu. So with that, I am hoping that you'll all join me and keep forgiveness on your menu tonight and in the year to come. Anyone can call me at any time, and I will hopefully point you in the right direction. I really need your help. I really want people to get involved, to be self-directed, to bring exciting heroes and champions of forgiveness to me to tell me about something they learned about forgiveness. The other thing in the next year as part of our rebuild is we're rebuilding our website, hopefully going to have a place where people can post about their own forgiveness stories. So that's some of what we're going on with now. So just on that, thank you. I may have forgotten something else, but you know what, I'll get to it later. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Laurie Grace, who is going to give the first award of the evening. Laurie.
So I'm so glad to see this continuing as something that we can keep doing. And when I was seeing the faces of the people who had been champions and heroes, I felt tears welling up in my eyes because I had learned so much from them, and some of them stayed at my home, which was particularly good for me because I got to learn from them in other ways. And I'm also really happy that Eileen, as well as myself and a few others, are going to come forward and run ongoing programs. So it's not just one day. And I'm really happy that we're continuing the message of Bob and the inspiration of Bob, at least. And one of the things that I'm really glad about is that through all my learning with these different heroes and champions and other things, that my concept of forgiveness is that it's something we do to both heal ourselves as well as hopefully help someone else. But it's so different than what I got when I was growing up in the church. And now you be a good girl and you forgive somebody, this kind of thing. But it's so much of a broader spiritual act, which I appreciate. So with that, I want to read about you and give you your first award for today. And this is to Anna. And I'm going to read because you've been the one preparing it all. And I just flew in quickly from Hawaii to be here. So, Anna, and your last name, Anna Hollow. Anna Hollow. She teaches forgiveness and recovery from addiction as a counselor, an author, a poet, and an educator. She holds a BA in Peace Studies and an MA in Dispute Resolution from Pepperdine University and MA in Dispute Resolution from Pepperdine University School of Law. Anna is also a certified domestic violence counselor, radical forgiveness coach, and recovery coach. Great. Anna is deeply inspired by her daily study of A Course in Miracles, meditation, and yoga. From her own difficult childhood to becoming a successful counselor, Anna knows firsthand the benefits of using forgiveness as a tool for inner peace and freedom. Over the past 20 years, she's worked with thousands of people, including couples and at-risk families, hospice patients, nonprofits, businesses, and schools. Anna's mission to extend peace includes her work with inmates in prison at San Quentin and juvenile offenders. She has provided restorative justice, poetry, and mindfulness meditation to incarcerated people since 2002. Anna teaches workshops internationally on forgiveness, recovery from addiction, self-empowerment, women's issues, emotional healing, and communication skills. She has presented her work in Singapore, Argentina, Mexico, Poland, the Czech Republic, and around the United States. Her books include Forgive and Be Free, The Edges Are Friendly, and a chapter in Colin Tipping's book, Why You Still Need to Forgive Your Parents. She also created the Healing Power Forgiveness audio CD, and several online courses include Forgive and Be Free of Your Addictions. She's worked for over 20 years in the field of restorative justice and reconciliation, teaching her clients practical skills for living boldly in harmony, strength, and empowerment. And to find out more, go to annaholub.com. So with that, I'd like to get your gift and your award. And
I gotta check it out.
yeah.
I want to let you know that when Jacinta called me the other day I knew Jacinta's work. I knew about the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance, and I've been to several of the wonderful forgiveness days over the years, and I just couldn't imagine why she was calling me. She finally, we got in touch, and she said, how would you like to be a champion, this year's champion of forgiveness? And I just burst into tears. And I said, hold on while I cry. So I tell you that because it's, I'm kind of speechless up here, actually. Very, very grateful to be here. And I want to thank the spirit of Bob Plath, whom I feel is here with us. I'm trusting that he's here with us. And I also thank my teacher, Yeshua, who gave us A Course in Miracles, and a student, and probably will be the rest of my life, of that particular teaching. And it really informs a lot of my work. For me, forgiveness is a lot about learning how to release, how to do that unwinding thing, so that it's not just in our minds, but we get all the way down into our feet, into our gut, into our heart, into our jaw, wherever we parked something that is a painful memory. Could be about a lot of different things, and I know that you understand that here. So for me, getting deep into this place of what is the sorrow, what is the grievance, what is the resentment, and it's not just about one thing. People will say, oh yeah, I know I have this issue with so-and-so, and that's great to bring forgiveness to that arena, but for me it's really a way of life. It's not about one issue, it's about how do I walk through this world? How do I learn? How do we learn to unwind the sorrows and the sufferings, the resentments, the grievances that we collect over years of time? So my work in particular has been working with people and writing about what does it take to be really honest about what we really think and what we really feel underneath some of the nicer layers, and get a hold of that part, and then with a lot of compassion and intention and, if appropriate, prayer, to touch those places with a real willingness to offer them. So for me, forgiveness is a spiritual thing. It's not a religious thing necessarily. It can be if you want it to be, but it definitely involves touching, trusting, offering our pain and sorrow to something larger and kinder than our individual self. So even if we don't even know what that might be and have no name for it, it doesn't matter. We just trust. There's a lot of trust involved, and then this laying down of our burdens.
So that's the first part. The second part is once we lay those burdens down and we breathe them out of our bodies,
we make room. Make room for light and for love and for guidance, for truth, directly. And that's why it's such a radical thing to do. Because basically what we do is
we say, well, I'm not going to do one more day of life as usual as I've been taught since the day I got here.
To have a battle going on. In the Course it says we make a decision to walk off the battlefield. And I find that to be a very radical and beautiful and powerful thing to do. So
I feel like with what happened in the past year in this country, what happened even in the past week,
one message that I have is that when we forgive, we are not being weak. When we forgive, we are clearing the closet so that there's room for more strength
from the oneness that we are, so that we can go forth and be active in this world.
And each of us has our own beautiful way, right? Each of us will be called to the things that we are here to do. And so we make room for each other and we say yes. And we make this world a place that's safe and welcoming for everyone, no matter what. So if anybody thinks, well, I don't really want to forgive because then I might be weak and then I might become a doormat,
I just want to say, no, that's not what it's about. It's about digging in and getting actually
really strong with our compassion and with our willingness to speak up so that the beauty of this life that we have here can travel on to our children and our great-grandchildren, each in our own way. So I have a poem for you.
Can you hand me my water?
I decided since this is a celebration, I want to offer you a poem and offer you a song. Because really, this is a celebratory time.
It is for me. I'm incredibly honored to be here. And I thought, why not offer a poem and a song? So here's the poem.
This is my poem that is the most about forgiveness. I have a book of poetry. It's called The Edges Are Friendly. And this poem is called Fishing. I rescind my recriminations and revoke my grievances, scooping them into a grand net and hauling them, heavy and teeming as they are, back aboard ship like a great catch of haddock or snapper. Thousands of grudges flapping their tails, gasping for air, exposed in plain view, dying on the deck of my schooner. Gulls hungry overhead. I have sent into this world many angry thoughts, and I'm fishing them all back to be given as prasad, as an offering, a sacrament, returned to the goddess of the sea.
So now I'm going to sing a very simple song. I would love it if you would sing with me. Super duper simple. I wrote this song, and the first part of it, it's only got two parts. The first part of it is, may all beings be blessed today. So when we sing this, let's really mean it. And what I mean by be blessed today is that we share our love with our world. It's as simple as that. this on? Yeah. And then the second part is about the Rainbow Bridge. It's a welcome. It's an invitation. So here's the first part. And once you get it, I'll sing it a few times. And once you get it, just please sing along with me. It goes like this. May all beings be blessed today. 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 Come along the Rainbow Bridge. Come along the Rainbow Bridge. We're all on the Rainbow Bridge. So sparkle on the Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge, Rainbow Bridge. May all beings be blessed today. 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 Come along the Rainbow Bridge. Come along the Rainbow Bridge. We're all on the Rainbow Bridge. So sparkle on the Rainbow Bridge. Rainbow Bridge, Rainbow Bridge. May all beings be blessed today. Thank you.
Guys.
Try to all move in as close as possible.
Yeah.
Thanks. And further over on the right also. Way over, further over on the right. Thanks.
Try to show up in the monitor. So how should we move? Are we okay?
Frank, can you move in a little bit?
Come over here this way?
Yeah,
Go
tighten
that way.
tighten up, and move it to your left.
To the left. And you guys. Okay. Is that- And then, can you switch with them?
Frank's almost there.
Tell people in the back.
Okay. Here we are.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay, and Rob, can you put one of the other mics in front of the whole group?
We don't need mics.
Don't need
Yeah,
mics?
we just need this
Well,
mic.
we need.
Okay. Okay. So, yep, we're good. One voice. Guys, one voice. Okay. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here. What a beautiful gathering. What a beautiful history that Jacinta has brought, plus the predecessors. And I was a little taken aback when I got the call, and my instinct was to, oh, they want something from the men. Okay, let's bring it. And so here we are. And we basically would like to offer a witness that, forgiveness is a process, and I really liked what Anna was saying around you come to forgiveness, and so we want to encourage the process of whatever it is that you feel and whatever it is you need to go through in order to get to forgiveness. And this is all about relationship. And how do we be present for another person's pain? How do we set aside our own ego in order to just honor another person's experience? And it seems like this is so difficult, and that for men, this is particularly difficult. And so in this past week, there has been this incredible drama that is played out on the national stage. And I was really struck by the image of Christine Ford having been muffled during her assault, to almost to the point where she didn't know if she was going to be able to breathe and survive. And how powerful it was that she had her voice at this hearings under the most extremely challenging circumstances. And yet here the men coming from patriarchy could not acknowledge or could not get over the need to cling to power. And so what we would like to do is, this is probably a little twist on how you do things here at the Forgiveness World International Forgiveness Day. But this is an opportunity to find your voice, and we are here to be present for that. What is it, if you had one thing that you could say to a man, to men, to us men, we are conscious men seeking to be rooted in the sacred masculine, but we're also here on behalf of all men. And so if you had just a statement, so like 10 seconds, just this little window of time, if you have something in your voice, in your heart, that you feel we would like to hear, that we could use to hear in our process of coming to a reconciliation, to growth, what is it that we can do to help hear you? Yes.
Thank you. I don't think it's all men per se.
One clear statement.
My clear statement is that our country divided is about power-hungry people and a lack of democracy, where a Senate and elections are not democratic. And this greed for power is so strong that the men who sit in the Senate cannot get past their greed for power.
Thank
and
you.
That has not to do with any of the men
Thank you.
here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Eileen.
Please use your sacred masculinity to protect us and hear us.
Please use your sacred masculinity to protect us and to hear us. We hear you. Christy.
So I am so grateful for you men showing the courage to stand up and be recognized as good men, for we need good men who have heart to speak up. Thank you. When you hear a woman being disrespected, you need to bring your voice of love and compassion.
Anybody else? Yes. Yes, we have a microphone. Go ahead.
Please stand up.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. And a request to everyone, not just men, but everyone, to please begin to see any transgression as a transgression against yourself.
Thank you. Women, we hear you. We open our hearts to you. We do not want to override you. We do not want to deny you. We do not want to make you feel less than. We do not want to make you the victim, blaming you as victim. If there has been ever a time where you have experienced a transgression through our own ignorance, we would like to say, on behalf of ourselves and all men, we are so truly sorry. We are so truly sorry for whatever has happened to you on behalf of men. Do not want to shut you down.
We're here to protect you, to show our strength.
We honor you. We want to hear your voice. Really loud and sing. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have one more little piece to that, and that is that in this sacred masculine, we're not standing with the tail between our legs and cowering. We want to stand in our strength, and we have two voices that are here to express that. Thank you.
I am kind of amazed as I look back on things that I always considered myself an aspiring man, a conscious person, and yet it was not until I was well in my 40s and in my 50s that I realized two things which I have forgiven myself, and that is how much I really did not listen to the other. And I traveled the world. I went in darkest alleys in India. And once in my 50s, I was walking with my brother's girlfriend on a well-lit street, and she was petrified. And I realized that she could never take for granted what I took for granted. And I've not forgotten it since, but I was in my 50s. So I'm just kind of amazed at how long even a supposedly conscious and aspiring person could be oblivious.
Darren.
I've heard a lot of very inspiring things about the goddess movement and feminine divine space. And I choose to make the commitment to do whatever I have to do to hold the space of the divine masculine energy for the rest of my life. And I know that that involves facing the energy of the predator that I saw in Washington, D.C. and many places within me. And that I need to root that out in myself. And I claim to hold the space, the presence of divine love for the rest of my life, and to serve in any way to make it right in this world in any way possible that's appropriate. I see you.
Thank you for this opportunity to be present for you. Is there a comment from the back?
I want to say, I just want to say, you men are beautiful, and your consciousness is perfect, and you owe no apologies. And what we have is a culture that doesn't recognize it. We have women standing next to Kavanaugh and the senators who push this thing through, and women will do it too. It's blindness. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, we're staying in essentially a sacred space here. And this is what we didn't want to, we just wanted that little window for the voice to come through. But we have to move on, I'm afraid.
Can I say one thing?
I just want one thing to say.
When the revolution comes up, you guys will be safe.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So if you guys could just hold on for 1 second.
Runs back there.
Yeah. I know, it touches a root. You guys, can you just stay up here for 1 second? I want you to know, my name is Christy Michaels, and I have taken on the same thing as Darren, being a priestess of Mary Magdalene, being a priestess, a woman who claims her divinity, who holds that sacred space and honors that divine love. Let it flow through me. And Dan, Craig Morris, you are receiving the award of a hero of forgiveness with the men that you've inspired to join me. And when we did a Magdalene Moonrise Easter service, and the men apologized to the women, it was so touching. And it's gone out as ripples and waves throughout the world. So you do represent all men because you hold that energy of the masculine in you. But we love you and I appreciate you. And I'm so grateful that we have men like you on this planet. And may you go on and multiply the men in your life, touch other men, and get other men to awaken to it's okay to claim their divine nature, just like women need to claim their divine nature, because the hashtag #MeToo movement rose women up. I'm here, hashtag #MeToo. I had this horrible, awful thing happen to me. But my sisters are in need of me saying something, so I stand with them. But now what? Respect. 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 All women rise and stand in respect. All women rise and stand in respect. All women rise and stand in respect. All women rise. Yes, rise. All women rise and stand in respect. Claim your sovereignty. The new archetype on the planet is the sovereign priestess of respect. You are the loving respect of love itself. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Thank you.
Okay, Lori, you can say one.
You know, as one of the people who have sponsored this event, I want to say thank you, and that I feel that we as women are really going to need you in the coming years. And as we see Planned Parenthood taken down and various other things, we need some action as well. And I hope and pray that you will do that, because I think we're headed to a hard time. So thank you, and I hope for your companionship and partnership. Thank you.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Go out and touch many hearts.
Well, we now come to an incredible part of our evening. This is our hero of forgiveness. This woman is forgiving and is such a joy. And mostly any of us. It's absolutely stunning that anyone could go through even one half of what she has actually gone through and still be here. Just to give you a little insight on her story, we will show the video, if we could, please.
Carmen Tarleton, before she was attacked by her estranged husband, and before lye burned 80% of her body, took her vision, an ear, and left her like this. She had no sense of her appearance until she did her first television interview in 2008.
When I went to listen to that on the TV, on the news, they had a graphic warning before they showed me. And I was blind. I mean, I knew I was scarred, but I had no idea what I looked like.
The sight of her made children cry.
I don't have an ear here. This ear got gone with the lye, and I ended up having to have my ear canal completely renewed.
Narcotics, a lot of them, were the only way she could bear the pain from the scarring. She had had 14 surgeries on her neck alone. And then, this overcomer beat the odds again.
It goes from here all the way to here.
It was Valentine's Day 2013. 15 hours of surgery. the 5th full-face transplant ever done in the United States. The donor, a 56-year-old woman from Massachusetts. Carmen and the woman's daughter have formed a warm friendship.
She gets to see her mother's face, because when I turned my face, this is her mother's profile. This is what she grew up saying. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be.
Carmen moved to Manchester, New Hampshire a few months ago, not long after she learned her ex-husband died in prison. She forgave him years ago, not long after the attack.
He's responsible for what he did, and I'm responsible for staying, and I'm responsible for my life after that.
She lives alone, thrilled to be independent again, and loves to walk the city. This is a woman who loves her life, a woman on a mission, who believes this injury, this brutality, led her to her real purpose here.
If you could say, go back to 39, had it not happened. No, I want to be where I am today. So let it happen, because I just want to be where I am today.
She's currently writing a book, a sequel to Overcome, Burned, Blinded, and Blessed. And she's a sought-after inspirational speaker. She's living life like it's her job, because when you come as close as she did to losing it all, every single day is a gift.
My only question to you is, how happy are you? That's my question, because I know how happy I am.
In Manchester, Amy Covino, WMUR News 9.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you, Jacinta, for inviting me. It's just such an honor. And we all have our different stories of forgiveness, and you've heard a bit of mine. And one thing I had, and I still am very blessed, and what I tell people is, you know, we're all blessed, but I happen to be one of the ones who knows it. And my life has been very challenging, and there's been so many challenges. I don't know if I could have survived without the blessings. So my part of forgiveness really started when I woke up from the coma. I woke up from the coma 3.5 months later, and nobody had to tell me what happened. I recalled most of it. And I woke up after having a dream that life was a choice. So I woke up with a whole different attitude. I was not in a pattern of violence at any time in any of my relationships in my past. So I wasn't an abused woman along the way. So I didn't carry a lot of shame and guilt about what happened. It was truly out of the blue. It was not on my radar. So waking up with life was a choice was my saving grace, because I felt so strongly that I chose to stay. And if I chose to stay, then I had to take self-responsibility for whether or not I was going to be what society said I was going to be. And society and our culture said I was going to be depressed. I was going to have post-traumatic stress disorder. I was going to have all these issues. I wasn't going to be independent. And I couldn't live with that. And if I chose to stay, I didn't have to, right? So I just took this journey that I wasn't even aware of at the time that was incredibly painful on many levels. And when I came to the time to sit down and really forgive my ex-husband for what he did, it was 3 years later. A lot had happened, and I was at a real place in my life, which was actually almost to the day 8 years ago, in October of 2010. And I sat down, my kids were in school, and I just did my own self-work. That was my job, and it still is, every day. That's my job. That's why I stayed, that's my job. And so I had simple conversations with myself about what forgiveness really was. And I didn't know what it really was, because when I would think about, I use my sister as an example because I have a sister just a year older than me, and you know how sisters bang heads and fight. And we would get into an argument, and she would say something that hurt my feelings, and I would forgive her. But then a year later, 6 months later, if the subject came up, I was as pissed off then as I was before. And I was thinking about that, contemplating forgiveness, and I said, I don't know how to forgive. What is it then? How do you let go of that? And I just started talking out loud to myself about my ex-husband. And I do say it was easy because it was a blessing. I was gifted that blessing. And that's all I did. And in October of 2010, I went to a World Dern conference for Dern survivors, and they had a side session on forgiveness. And I said, well, I'm going to go to that. Because I wanted, and I didn't say anything to anybody, because I hadn't told anybody I really forgave except for my sister and my mother. And I went to this side session, couldn't see very well, but I sat down and I just listened to people, couldn't see them. And this was all people that had been burned at the hands of someone else. And some of the stories were more horrific than my own. And everyone carried so much anger. There was so much anger in their voice. And I sat there and I thought, God, they haven't forgiven, but I knew I had. And that's why I went. I knew I had. And true forgiveness to me, in my experience, if you can't trigger me in to feeling sorry for myself because of what he did. You can't trigger me into feeling bad about what he did. You can't trigger me into feeling bad that I'm legally blind. You can't trigger me into feeling bad about what he chose to do. He chose to do what he chose to do. I chose to stay. So if I chose to stay, then I needed to let that all go. So, and I did that over time. For me, I forgave easily, but to deal with all the challenges I had to deal with took a significant amount of time. And for 9 years, I had pain every day. And last year, about 10 and a half years after my injury, I was pain-free on a daily level. And I had gotten what I had hoped for, what I had worked for on a physical level. And a lot of that had come on an emotional level, had become on relationship levels as well. So I had all these great things that were going to happen to me someday, and it was 10 years later I said to myself, because it was just one thing after another, just living your life every day and doing the best you can every day, and 10 years later it was like, oh, I've arrived. I'm here. I feel good. I got, and then it all has all come together. And the journey still continues, just on different, deeper levels now. So it's all just been a blessing, and I feel very honored to be here and to share this part of my story with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Oh,
Carmen, this is for you. When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And in my hour of darkness, she is standing right in front of me. Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. 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 Speaking words of wisdom, let it be. And when the broken-hearted people living in the world agrees, there will be an answer, let it be. And though they may be parted, there is still a chance that they will see. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. And when the night is cloudy, there is still a light that shines on me. Shine on till tomorrow, let it be. I wake up to the sound of music. Mother Mary comes to me, speaking words of wisdom, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. There will be an answer, let it be. Let it be, let it be, let it be, let it be. Whisper words of wisdom, let it be.
Hello, I just want to share a couple of messages. We got in touch with Desmond Tutu's foundation. The Arch is in the hospital tonight. Keep our fingers crossed for him. He is an amazing man. It is also his birthday. He is 87 today. But in his honor, and because he was our champion, and hopefully we will get word from him in the next couple of days, I'm going to show you a video of him and one of his very, very best buddy, the Dalai Lama. And just before I do, I just want to tell you my favorite Tutu and Dalai Lama story. It's a photograph. It was in the newspaper in South Africa, and it was a picture of Desmond Tutu, the Arch, sitting in his deck chair, and running behind him, knocking his hat off his head, was the Dalai Lama in this sort of a pose. And the caption was, "Naughty Dalai Lama." So if we could just play this.
Forgiveness does not mean forget. You should keep memory about that sort of negative thing. But because of that, there is possibility to develop anger or hatred. That control, that's meaning of forgiveness.
Almost natural response is when I'm hit, I hit back. When you have been refined, you put yourself in the shoes of the other.
It is totally wrong. The practice of tolerance and practice of forgiveness is signs of weakness. Totally wrong. 100% wrong. Or 1000% wrong. Isn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean...
This is forgiveness. It's the sign of strength. Isn't it?
Absolutely. Yes, I was just going to say, those who say forgiving is a sign of weakness haven't tried it. Share the joy. Are you in?
forgiveness does not mean forget. You should keep memory about the sort of negative thing.
Is when I'm if you are going to wait for the perpetrator to be ready to ask for forgiveness, to be penitent, you are binding yourself into a victimhood. You're saying, I depend on him. Whereas you can say, I am ready to forgive you, and I forgive you. And then it is like a gift. It is up to him or her to accept the gift. But you are then released from the victimhood, and you can get on with your life. But it isn't easy. It isn't also feeling good. You know, it's a decision that you have to make.
Well, here we are. We're going to do our first ever forgiveness forums. And the question tonight to our experts is, why forgive? I would like to introduce our experts before we start. And I will start here with Dan Craig Morse, who is also a hero. I'm getting a lot of feedback there. Dan is a therapist and has a family therapist and has worked in family dynamics a lot. Then we have Laurie Grace, who is has been working in nonviolent communication and empathy for a very long time. Then I would like to introduce Eileen Barker, who is also a champion of forgiveness. And Eileen has been teaching forgiveness and working on forgiveness for a very long time, does incredible work, is the one who's going to be doing our circles and some of our trainings. Oh, better mic, thank you. Oh, I have to swap mics as I go, hold on. And so I'm really, really delighted to have Eileen here. Then I have Michael Gilbert, who also works with Eileen. They are going to be teaching the Feminine Masculine Forgiveness class that is on the 16th of November. Michael works on forgiveness all over the world, and I've been in workshops before, and it's really exciting to have him. And then, of course, our incredible hero of forgiveness, the beautiful, amazing Carmen, who has just blown my heart wide open here tonight, as a delight. And our champion, Anna Hello. And so you all know who our people are, and so I'm just going to hand it over to them. And I think I would like to start with Eileen, as Eileen hasn't spoken yet today.
I've spoken a lot, just not here. So you want me to start with why?
Don't think the mic's up.
We'll take care of it. Okay. All right. The question of why.
So I think it kind of lifts off from something Anna said. And men might say it just slightly differently, but I think it's just pointing at the same thing. Which for me, forgiveness, and the more I get into it, the clearer this seems to me, is really about our relationship with the one. And what are the things that keep us separate from the one? And it's all the things. It's what somebody did and how we were hurt, and maybe it was when we were a child, or maybe it was our last relationship. But whatever it is that sort of separates us, and what our story, the story that separates us, and the feelings. And that's all the fodder for forgiveness. But forgiveness for me, it's the rainbow bridge that allows us to release all of that, release those illusions and stories and so forth, so that we can come back to the one, which actually we never really leave. We just, we just lose sight of it consciously. So we are always part of it, but just so that we can consciously know that and experience it. And so I did love that song and the sparkly parts of it. So I think that's why. Who doesn't want to sparkle? Who doesn't want to, just really wake up every morning, as our hero said, just really being grateful that we have the day and the love, and that we are part of the one, and what gifts can we bring? How much joy can we experience? And so I think for me, forgiveness is the bridge between when we're not in that place and when we can experience that. So why not?
We'll ask you to just pass that one mic around. That will
Which
work
way?
best for us. Yeah, stick with your mic. Stick with that one.
Shall I speak next? My answer would be that forgiveness is good for the system. It's good for the relationship you're in. If you're in a relationship and you're holding a grievance, everyone benefits. If we let go of a regret story or a resentment story, the relationship benefits, the family benefits, our friends benefit. They don't have to hear that same story again that we've been telling for 5 years. And so there's a systemic aspect, there's a relational aspect to forgiveness. We live in these limbic bodies, these emotional bodies. We feel each other's security, if that's what's in the room. We feel each other's love, if that's what's in the room. We feel each other's anger or blame. These are all systemic. They're not just within individuals. Like, I'm thinking we could start a movement, Me Too and We Too. It's the we too is how we as human beings relate to other people's grievances. How do we listen? How do we hold space? And how does the one that's been hurt hold respect? I loved when the women stood up, and Christy, you were saying respect. I think there's a lot of, I would call it victim entitlement. There's a lot of I'm a victim and therefore I can yell at you and you just have to listen. It's very hard to listen to someone's anger when it's not even directed at you. Let alone when it's directed at you and we're being blamed for something. And I think men are facing that. A lot of men are frozen in the headlights of how do I say anything? Because anything that I say can bring more storm. And so there needs to be more training around how we interrelate with each other and how we respond and hold space for each other in a mutuality and responsiveness to how we navigate those kinds of accusatory tendencies, retaliatory tendencies that are systemic. So, yeah, that's what I would say about why we need forgiveness.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to say, Carmen, how deeply blessed I am and so grateful inside that I flew over from Hawaii to hear you. And when you were talking, I was just crying. And I was so grateful to be inspired at a level with you that it takes me to another place. And I'm so grateful. And your process of acknowledging this as choice and moving forward. May I take that inspiration that I get from you and let it be in my life, because I know it'll be useful. Because I don't think I've had quite the challenges you've had, but I want to take that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so glad I flew over. All right. So I feel very honored and happy to know Marshall Rosenberg when he was alive, and the process of empathy and learning to empathize and be empathized with that he taught and that I finally got and then ended up teaching myself has been so useful, and I feel that that has been
a really profound tool for me to move into forgiving where I need to, as well as what you, Carmen, was saying about, taking responsibility for oneself and choice. Those are all, it's a mix, and it's very beautiful. And I'm also going to be doing a class on empathy and forgiveness in the way that's been useful for me. And that's coming up in November as well. And I'm just so grateful also for all of you being here. And I feel when we're all here together, and those of you who are on live stream, we are uplifting the planet together. So I'm just so grateful for your attention and energy, and I invite you to get more involved with us and to create an even greater energy in the planet. And we could possibly use some people on our board of directors, too, for the World Forgiveness Alliance. That's coming up as well. So I just wanted to say that, and if any of you get that inspiration where you're just so moved and that you want to move into this, welcome. And so I look forward to seeing some of you at the class I'm going to teach. And who would like to talk next? Okay.
I think forgiveness is maybe the peak of Abraham Maslow's pyramid. It's the highest level of spiritual development, I think. And yet we can tend to be in relationship, and communication with our partners and with other people is so important and such a challenge at times. And how do we navigate that? And I think emotions are so important in terms of communication, and how can we be present for each other's emotions. But in the end, I think what Carmen is representing here is that ultimately it's not about who said what, who did what wrong. It's I'm taking responsibility for my life, and no matter what happens. And what a beautiful display of that principle right here.
Let's have an introduction too. I think they're right there.
There we go. Why forgive? Well, a couple things come to me. This is a deep subject, as we know. To me, it's worth it because we learn humbleness. And for me, forgiveness is a doorway. And it takes us, if we're willing to walk through the door, and we're willing to let go of our suffering, take responsibility for ourselves, as you so beautifully showed us. Then on the other side of that door is freedom. It's our liberation. And why forgive? Well, if you want to be free, it seems to be required.
So do you really have a choice? I didn't think so, because I felt that there was no way I was going to be able to do what I wanted to do and be the example that I wanted to be that person in society that didn't listen to all the things, all the bad feelings I would have year after year, and I didn't want to be that person. And I didn't want to be that person because I had 2 teenage daughters, 12 and 14 at the time I was injured, and I didn't want to be that example for them. I wanted to be that example for everybody else, to say, I haven't gone through what she went through, that I can make it through my own stuff. And that was what I wanted to do, and I just kept plugging away, and I still do. I mean, my challenges don't go away, but I get really good at them. because I don't give myself a way out. And if I do throw annulment, it doesn't last very long. It's like you just can't fool yourself anymore. You know, you can't do it anymore. You don't go back. You never go back to the person you were before. And that's a big blessing because you don't want to go back. You become too aware and too conscious of living your own life on a daily level and being responsible for your own life. And it's nobody else's fault anymore, no matter what they do to you. Because you don't get to control what other people do, you only get to respond to what your life events show you, what your life events give you. You don't get to choose those. You don't get to control people, you don't get to choose or control their behavior. So yeah, is that fair? Well, no, but that's the world we live in. To me, that's the classroom of Earth. And so, you know, I'm gonna be an A+ student now. I never was in high school.
I also want to queue up one of our experts who can't be here tonight but did send us a tape. Can we see what Andrew had to say about why forgive?
In answer to the question, why forgive, I have a question of my own. Do you want to live? As I have studied forgiveness over the years and found the effects that forgiveness has and unforgiveness has, it only makes sense to me that one learn how to forgive. It doesn't make sense to a lot of other people. I've learned that people who don't forgive tend to be isolated, defensive, tendency towards more anger, and also unhealthier, or not as healthy as people who forgive. Why is that? Because the mind is in control of your health. And if your mind is negative, if your mind is continually flooding your system with the negative hormones and damaging chemicals that come up when you have anger and resentment and all the negative emotions that go along with unforgiveness, then what happens is that it begins to wear the body down, it begins to burn the body up, and eventually, not right away, I mean, you could go for many years without feeling the effects of it, but eventually you will. I read a study in regarding the Cancer Treatment Centers of America, and the admitting minister who did the interviews for admitting patients said that 61% of the people who they admit to the cancer treatment centers have unforgiveness issues. 61%. So their bodies are eating themselves up with disease because they can't let go. Now, I early in my career wanted to help everybody and thought that I had the answer for everybody. I've since learned that that's not true, and so I've had to let go of the majority of people and deal with those who are ready to accept the truth, those who are ready to move on, to grow, to expand, to find love and beauty in life. Those are the ones who forgive. Those are the ones who are strong enough to forgive, because they understand that by letting go of the anger and letting go of the resentment, they can move on and they can grow and they can expand. I teach people to punish the act, but forgive the actor. You punish the act, you react to the act, you...
Steps that anybody can learn, and so it just demystified it. And so that was sort of, for me, like, okay, if anybody can do this, then I'm going to learn this, and then I'm going to teach it, because I know a lot of people who need this. I've been a mediator for 25 years, so I'm always working with people in conflict who need forgiveness. Some of them want it and some of them don't, but you know, I just saw so much need for it. So that, you know, the how is, and what I learned from Fred is that his work for me is really about looking at the story that we tell and how the story itself holds things in place. And because our minds are so powerful and our beliefs are so powerful, so if we're always telling ourselves that we're a victim and we're powerless and that what happened it means something about me and we're taking it personally, those really hook us. And if we can really look at our story and those parts of it and realize we're not victims and we're not powerless and it's not personal. This is what they did, but I don't have to make it mean something about me. That those are three powerful ways to start unraveling the grievance. And so that's where I started, and I just started with those pieces, and then over time started learning, well, there's more. There's emotional work that really is important for people. You cannot bypass emotions, so that we brought into it, and the spiritual aspect, which for me again, and I think very, aligned with what Anna teaches is, sort of the essence of it. It's very important. And then with Michael, what I've been learning about these last, 5 years, we've been working together is the body. You can't leave the body out, so you really have to look at what's happening and where are you holding it in your body and how do you release it. So all of that is part of the how in the processes that we teach, but it's not always necessary to do all of those pieces, but somewhere in that I find people find what they need. So that's how I approach it, which is like multidimensional and lots of tools as needed.
I'd also like to speak to what I have used for forgiveness for myself, and I want to let you know I was raped in an alleyway at 19 years old as my introduction to sex. So in order to get over that, I really had to see what were the precious unmet needs, as Marshall would put it, of my attacker, and also what was mine. And in other words, I had to really take responsibility for whatever part I helped contribute to that. And, I was also, very traumatized and in shock, and it took plenty of time to get over it. So when I got involved with nonviolent communication, what I so appreciated was his statement that behind every attack, behind every judgment, behind every criticism is a precious unmet need of the other person. And then also to learn to give myself empathy. What are my own precious unmet needs? And then finding a place where in acknowledging that and acknowledging the precious unmet needs of the other, can we find a place where we can come together in part, where we can understand each other, even if I'm just talking to that person in fantasy, and come to a place of forgiveness. So for me, that's been the biggest gift and has opened my heart further to compassion. Yeah.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Who else would like to talk?
Or shall I speak?
Go
I
ahead.
think that recognizing the accusatory tendency is really important. We can just automatically go into accusation. I watched this accident happen before my eyes a couple of weeks ago. I got out of the car, tried to help the two kind of navigate so they didn't kill each other after the accident, and just watch them both, like, in shock, go into accusing the other, defending, blaming. And it's so wired in us to just, we can so automatically, are you all right? Oh, now, okay, whose fault was it? It's just so wired to the blaming tendency, the accusing tendency. And we can blame the others, externalizing. There's externalizers and internalizers. And the internalizers are more like self-accusing, and they need more self-forgiveness work. There's more shame embedded from being accused or being criticized or being attacked or being abused, and all that internalization, that needs to be rewired. Like that impulse to go against ourselves is such a deep, instinctive aspect for internalizers. And then there's externalizers. They're going to blame someone else and put the blame out there and deflect. And so I think we need to recognize those tendencies and rewire around those. Really rewire. And I love what Carmen said about that. So inspiring about what I'm hearing about responsibility here tonight is what's really landing in me the most. So we're truly responsible to be responsive to what's happening in ourselves and what's happening in systems and in others. And to me that brings up accountability. And I think that's the other side. I think that's the other side of forgiveness, is that we're pulling for the other to be accountable. We want the other to admit something. We want the other to take that, to take accountability for their actions. And we can wait for that for years, right, and not get that. And so that's where the inner forgiveness work is really a blessing. And yet there's something really instinctive and really important about wanting accountability from the other person, wanting the empathy from them, wanting the compassion from them, wanting the ownership from them. And there's an art to that. There's an art to really giving an authentic apology, a really authentic empathy to the other person and holding with their experiences. It's very powerful to give that to someone. So that's like forgiveness B, you know. That's like the interpersonal forgiveness, which is it's really fundamental and important as well.
I ask you another question.
Go ahead.
So the question is, you're saying we need to rewire, and so, sorry for asking, how?
Someone repeat that on the mic.
Yeah, so she just said, okay, so we just heard about rewiring, but how do we do that?
In the lobby there's a book called Forgive and Be Free, and it gives my step-by-step of actually how to do this, from my perspective, of course. And there's something that I dreamed up, which is called how. Like, how do we do it? Honesty, openness, and willingness. If we have those ingredients, then we're going to be ready. I would add trust, and also asking for help. Some kind of prayer or intention, because we don't do this by ourselves. At least from my experience, it doesn't work very well. We all know what that's like. I tried to do it, oh, it didn't work, bad. You know, and so that's why we need help from the one that gives us life. So however you imagine that to be, just to ask, hey, I need some help right now. I'm totally out of ideas. That's the humbleness I was talking about before. So with the honesty of what's really going on, underneath all my little top level stories of, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, actually, underneath all that, I'm super pissed off and blah, 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 you know, and just let ourselves in on it. That's the honesty part. Openness to something new changing. Willingness to change. Otherwise, nothing's going on, right? And then a big trust and asking for support and help. And then there's some beautiful, the word that came to me is magic, but it's even better than magic. It's like, it's grace is what it is. Because the grace then is what takes the pain. We just have to be ready and willing to lay it down. And then the good part happens, which is all the beauty and the intuition and the feeling of connection that happens after that. Naturally. Just naturally happens. You want to add anything?
Well, for me, because I was injured at the age of 39 and I was not a religious person and I didn't consider myself even a spiritual person at the time, but because my trauma was so vast, it hit so deep and changed every aspect of my life. And I say forgiveness came easy, and it did. And the how for me was just pretty much a step-by-step process of coming up with my own philosophy of why I was here, what was my purpose now, and actually on a soul level, taking responsibility for being here, not just staying here, but for being here. And what was my turpus? What was my soul turpus? And because everything had been taken away, my career, everything. So I had to answer those questions that at the age of 39 I had not even contemplated. So I contemplated all of that. And I had the time, I had nothing but time, and I contemplated all of those kinds of questions. And I just kept, and I listened to hundreds of books of everybody else's perspective. And I picked and chose what resonated with me. And I did what worked for me. And I tried lots of things. That didn't work. That didn't feel so, I don't know about this. So I just kept trying, and then over time I developed my own ways, and I have my own techniques to get through navigating negativity on a daily level, because I go through that every day. So I went that way. But initially, how to forgive and how to move forward for me was answering the big questions and believing in something that you truly, truly believe. And not just because you were raised with it, not just because somebody else says it, because it resonates so deeply with you, now you can believe it. And when you believe it, then you really start moving forward.
What more should be said? I guess when you have a baby who's crying, what is the natural instinct? It's to go, oh, what's going on? What's wrong? Oh, okay, you're hungry. Oh, okay. That is the essence of mirroring, where you're tuning in to that child. You're letting that child know that you understand what it's saying, and then you're responding. And so our ability to be empathically responsive to another person's distress is an incredible tool. And the word mirroring, I just love it so much, because it's kind of like what Michael is talking about. It's allowing the other person to have their subjective experience, so that I can have my subjective experience. So that I can have my voice. I've been dealing with my father. I went home and I saw my father, and in relationship with my father, I completely had to just swallow myself up and not be heard and seen, because it was too threatening for him. And it's intense, this patterning of self-denial, and I'm just kind of coming out of my cocoon, and I just imagine what would it be like for him to go, Dan, tell me, what is it like for you? I want to hear you. And there's a healing process, and but when I have a clear mirror, and then I'm not taking on another person's projections, it's like a crystalline quality where another person's energy is reflected off of me, and I don't take it on. And I think maybe that this is the spiritual process of people, may have projections on us, and then us just doing like what the Dalai Lama is, just thank you, I love you, ho'oponopono, I hear you, I love you, and so that's. I'm sorry. Yes, there. Apology. Okay.
I know someone here had something she wanted to say. Can you pop up, stand up here a bit? Yeah, because I don't have strong, long mic strips. Okay. So we like this. So we can see. Yeah, we see good.
You can see me?
Yeah.
My name is Anne, and I'm so glad to be here. And Bob was someone that I knew, what a lovely man he was and what he has done in the world. I just wanted to talk about that my story was when I was about 14 years old, when my father was killed by a drunk driver. And he was the love of my life. And it took me a while because I was an adolescent, and adolescents listen to no one because they always know everything. So it took me to my early 20s to become spiritual. So this is what I want to say. So what I realized about the experience is that there is nothing that happens by accident. That as a result of this experience of my father's passing, which was extremely difficult for me, that it was by no accident. That it was an incident that happened that made me the person that I am today. I am so grateful. I will see my father again after I pass. But in the meantime, as a result of a traumatic experience, that I have deepened so greatly spiritually, because if we came here to be in the physical world, then we're missing it. Because there's stories and experiences that happen that bring us to a much deeper level, so that we can deepen as human beings having a spiritual experience. Thank you.
Does anyone else have anything they would like to add? Oh, look at that. Well, first up, you haven't spoken yet this evening, so could I have Will Chang, please?
Silence is golden. Nothing improves upon silence. And in the Ho'oponopono work, the objective there is to wipe out the screen so that you have a blank slate. You can return to that place of divine connection. What I've learned from Fred Luskin's work as of late is that he dismisses the story. Too much story. You already know your story in and out. You've been filled with your story on that point. So what he does now is he just says, breathe. Just breathe. Breathe from your lower belly. And you can tell if it's soft, if it's gentle. You can tell if you're holding back anything. You can tell if there's something bothering you. Just breathe through it. That's what he's saying. You can just breathe through all of that problem. So that's my contribution. Okay? Thank you. All right. Ho'oponopono, as taught by Dr. Hugh Lin, is putting balance back into balance. Pono is balance. And the balance is the duality of life. There's duality in everything. And when you put the balance back, because that's what happens, we get knocked off our balance. So that's what the Ho'oponopono does. The process in which they use the Ho'oponopono is to say, well, thank you for showing up, whatever problem is, and I am sorry, please forgive me, I love you. But this is not regarding necessarily transactional or any other person, because the teaching here in the Ho'oponopono is that I take 100% responsibility for whatever happens in my life. And by taking responsibility, I regain my power. I'm not a victim. And so by having that power within me, then I can forgive, I can let go, and I bring back the balance, the pono, back into my life. All right, thank you.
Oh, thank you, Will. And Angie, did you want to say something? Okay, well, come on up. And then, okay, we're coming near the end, and we're on live, so we have to be good. We like to run over, as you know.
Hi, I'm Angie, and I've been a volunteer with this organization for several years. One of the things I've done over the years is help facilitate forgiveness groups. And the question was how. And here's what to add to what everybody said. It's a skill that you have to practice. It's like a muscle to develop. Start with the small things in your everyday life. I mean, I started in the car. I don't know where you guys started, but I started in the car to forgive the people that I really wanted to get furious with. Mm-hmm. If we start with the little things, it actually does get easier when the things get harder. So that's my contribution.
You wanted to say something? And then you could get up here. So
Thank you. Yes, I'm Darren, and I want to share some forgiveness tools that have been extremely meaningful to me in the hopes that they might be useful to someone else. One of them is that I say yes to everything else I've heard. It's been so valuable. Is that there's actually a spiritual force in the universe, a field of forgiveness, that it just exists. It's here. And some masters call it the fire of forgiveness or the violet flame. And it exists, and we can call upon it any time. And I've been doing it every day really frequently, is calling out it and just visualizing this violet flame moving through my body and carrying away everything I don't need. And I've been one of those people, Michael's talking about that, tends to blame myself more than blaming others. So I've been directing it a lot inside myself. The other amazing tool that I've been using is putting the tip of my tongue on the roof of my mouth. When I do that, it just grounds me with myself. I feel connected, and it gives me that little space in consciousness to do a lot of these conscious things we've been talking about tonight instead of reacting. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is Darren Starvin, and he lives in Tiburon. And he's an acupuncturist and a incredible sort of higher dimensional healer. Look him up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just wanted to say a couple of things that have helped me with my process. I think a key thing to not forget is to honor oneself. You know, what was real for you, whatever it is you experienced as a result of having been violated. And for you to give yourself that space, because sometimes others won't understand or society might be blaming you. So I think that's very important, to honor one's feelings, one's emotions, and to give oneself that safe space. And other things that I found that could be helpful too is, of course, get help if you can, and take any action of empowerment that you can, that you're still able to whenever you can, because that helps obviously regain your own strength, your own spirit, helps you integrate what happened. And the other thing I wanted to say is this all gives you, obviously, of course, the obvious, and maybe it's not obvious, but allows you to reclaim your life. It really allows you to reclaim your life when you go through the process, and to give yourself whatever time you need to be compassionate with yourself, and to do your best to not compare and understand everybody has their own process. So those are some things I would add.
Marianne Williamson said an amazing quote that was used by Nelson Mandela, that it is our light, not our darkness, that we're most frightened of. So my experience is that been the darkness of whatever we have experienced or had happen to us is oftentimes more comforting. Maybe comfort is not the right word, but the dependent, to blame, to be in that kind of thing, because if we let that go, and I'm loving the messages that are coming out tonight about self-responsibility, and we go with the love. So Course in Miracles talks about that every act is either a call for forgiveness or a cry for love, or a call for, it's either an extension of love or a cry for love. So when somebody does a horrific act, there's somehow, in some way, in some level. And love is ultimately the answer. It's one of the greatest healers. It's loving ourselves and loving others. And I'll end with this one story about one of my teachers who was on a stage. She was invited to speak on a panel with all these head yogis, different ashram yogis, and somebody in the audience was very upset and charged the stage and was going to do harm to somebody on the stage who was really angry and hurt. And she heard a voice in her ear that said, "Push out love and tell him you love him and walk towards him." And she stood up and she just started pushing out love, and she said, "I love you. I love you." And the man just melted into a puddle on the floor. One of his best friends had just been arrested. It was tearing him up. He was so pissed at God. He wanted to attack these representatives of God in some way. So, when we are confident of the love in our heart, and we access that love, and we push that love out, it helps people, it helps us, it helps everyone. And we all want to see a world living in love. So be.
This is Lily, who has been an absolute godsend.
As is everyone. Hi. So, why forgive spoke to me at first. And for me, in my forgiving stuff, it's a matter of peace of mind. Because when I had resentment and all that stuff, it was always in my mind in one way or another, and just kind of like gnaw on it like a bone, you can't get rid of it, and yet you want to be at peace. So forgiving, I have found, is essential to have any peace, and I think that's true in the world too at large, that it's the only way to, or an essential way to get to peace. And then how to forgive, like you said, it's a process. And let's see, is it still in my brain? Well, telling your story. I think most forgiveness teachers say you have to tell your story, and I know it's different from like winding your story over and over again for 50 years. But to heal, a healing has to take place, and that means you have to like acknowledge what really happened and how much it hurt. And then from that, you can do all the other things about trying to understand the other person and get to a point where you make a decision, a choice, like you said, that, okay, I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to forgive. It's a decision, just like loving is a decision sometimes. And you have to get the idea that it's possible. I used to think it wasn't possible. You think, oh, it might be possible to give. Someone like Carmen was able to do it for something far worse than this thing going on in me. So maybe I can do it. And then you say, okay, I'll try. And all the other things that people have said, I think, have all been really a piece of the process.
Thank you. Well, actually, something just came to me as Lily was talking there, and it was the word forgive. Does anyone else see it? Does anyone else see it? You're giving, giving's in there. Forgiveness, you're giving this. So to me, I see that, what are you giving? You're giving yourself a peace of mind. You're giving yourself room to grow, to heal. You're forgiving someone else, you're giving them peace. You're letting them off the hook. There's, to me, just sometimes a vision of, I see everybody, I'm sorry, but I'm trying to see you all as what you look like when you were about 4 to 5 years old. And that's very, very helpful, by the way. It really is helpful, because it's not possible to really hate 5-year-olds. But also, I do remember seeing a child say, I'm sorry, Mommy. And my heart breaks just in that. And just the idea that, what I think about forgiveness is, I think forgiveness is the one thing that can stop the wheel of karma, to me. Forgiveness right now in the world, we're not, we should be cheering and championing the fact that 2 countries that have been warring for over 15 years have just made peace. Eritrea and also begins with an E. Ethiopia, yeah. And we should be just going, yay! Some peace. We've loads of wars that we don't hear about, But surely we should trumpet peace. And peace, the people are having to learn to love and meet each other and know each other again. And that is forgiveness, so I think that's awesome. But talking about children, we're coming to the end of our evening, but I told you all about Dada Vaswani. And his children have sent me a little tiny piece that they wanted you all to know. There were over 10,000 of these children, and we've got a class of about 40. Can we roll it?
Dada Vaswani says, forgiveness is the golden key to peace. We forgive, you should too.
So I thought we should share that, and then I think our champion of forgiveness, who I spoke to earlier this week, and we never quite got it together, but could we play? She was going to send me a message for all of you, but she told me I could use this instead. So could we play Marianne's message?
They are heroes. And the point of the hero is that the hero is like a beacon of light. And whenever I remember that, it's so much easier to get over myself. It's so much easier to say, Marianne, the only person you're hurting is yourself. Remember people who have forgiven things so far beyond anything that you've ever had to forgive. And remember what has happened when your heart has been touched. Remember what has happened when you've seen other people's whose hearts have been touched. Live in that place. Einstein said we will not solve the problems of the world from the level of thinking we were at when we created those problems. Every problem on this earth was created in a moment of not love, when the head was separated from the heart, and the solutions will be in that place where we do love, where we choose what Gandhi called soul force rather than brute force, where we stop apologizing for the fact that in our minds, love is the answer, where we will not let that conversation be peripheralized. We will not let that conversation be marginalized. We will not let that conversation be minimized. And when people tell us that we are just naive, we will respond by saying, if you think we can continue the way it is now, if you think we can continue as nations using brute force as our primary problem-solving option, if you think we can continue just building additional nuclear bombs to the 2,400 that we already have, if you think that we can continue this way, just hoping that this year we will keep Iran from getting a nuclear bomb, and next year we will be able to keep North Korea from getting a nuclear bomb, and we find as our only response to violence to build more prisons and to drop more bombs, if you think you can continue this way, that we can continue this way as a nation and not sometime within the next 10 to 20 years in ways that are too horrifying to imagine, lose at least one major American city and have the cause of immeasurable human suffering. If you think we can continue the way things are now and not have such catastrophic consequences, you are naive.
The main job I have left to do now tonight is to thank all of this wonderful panel. I am so honored to have you. I also want to thank particularly some of my best help is Rob Mayfield. Thank you, Rob. Lily Cutler. There you are. Thank you, Lily. Lily actually was my godson. You have to understand that. And Christy Michaels, who has been absolutely fantastic. And my sweet partner, William, who put up with this and did loads. And Laurie, for giving us the space and all the support we get here. My incredible team, Dan Drayson, Ken Jenkins, Ed Ellsworth. God love them, they had a hard old day today, wouldn't they? Anyhow. And Christy's team who ran the door, and that was Anthony and Paula. Okay.
And everyone else on the board.
And Angie, who is always fantastic. And I'm glad to get her back at work for
And
us.
can we thank you?
Well, thank you. And now to sing us out, I would like to call on Momo to give us another go. Can you pull her thing up for him?
You know what? I'm going to change my song. I'm singing something else.
Oh, okay.
An inspiration.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm honored and privileged to be here tonight. Please enjoy this beautiful song that was made famous by Mr. Nat King Cole.
There was a boy, a very strange, enchanted boy. Though he wandered very far, over land and sea, a little shy and sad of eye, but very wise was he. Then one day, a magic day came my way. Though we spoke of many things, fools and kings, this he said to me: the greatest thing you'll ever learn is just to love and be loved in return. In return.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, folks. We're out.